The Israel-Palestine conflict. It's one of the most enduring and perhaps the most complex geopolitical issues of our time. A struggle rooted deep in history, sacred claims, and competing dreams for a homeland. In this video, we'll unpeel the layers of this conflict, from its ancient origins to its modern-day complexities. We'll explore the historical narrative, the key geographical areas at stake, the intricate dynamics between the major players, Israel's surprising strength, and even how international perspectives, like India's, have evolved. The deep roots of conflict, a historical tapestry. Our journey begins around 1047 BC with the establishment of the Kingdom of Israel, a united monarchy under legendary figures like King David and King Solomon. Jerusalem, their capital, became the very heart of Jewish identity. It was here that King Solomon built the first temple, known to Jews as the Temple Mount, a site of profound worship. But Jewish sovereignty, as history often reminds us, was not permanent. In 586 BC, the Babylonians destroyed that first temple, triggering the first significant Jewish exile. While the Persians later allowed a return and the reconstruction of a second temple, it too met a tragic end. The formidable Roman Empire in 70 AD crushed a Jewish revolt and utterly destroyed the Second Temple, leaving only the Western Wall as a sacred remnant. This devastating loss initiated a widespread diaspora, scattering Jews across the Roman Empire and into Europe, where they often faced relentless persecution. Now it was within this Roman-dominated context that Jesus Christ, himself a Jew, emerged. His teachings, diverging from traditional Jewish ideology, led to the rapid growth of Christianity. The narrative of Jesus' public crucifixion in Jerusalem became tragically intertwined with the perception of Jews as responsible, a historical inaccuracy, as Roman authorities were the ones who carried out the act. Nevertheless, this perception fueled centuries of anti-Jewish sentiment and persecution. A pivotal shift occurred in 306 AD, when Constantine the Great embraced Christianity, making it the dominant religion of the Roman Empire. As Christianity flourished, so did animosity towards Jews. They were brutally tortured and killed, accelerating their migration, particularly to Europe. In Jerusalem, Constantine also commissioned the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, solidifying the city's immense importance for Christians. Now the next major transformation came in 638 AD with the Arab army of Umar conquering Jerusalem from the Byzantine Empire. Importantly, early Islamic rule often offered Jews a degree of protection and coexistence, recognizing them as people of the book. Under Islamic rule, Jerusalem gained immense significance for Muslims, primarily due to the Isra Miraj, the miraculous night journey and ascension of Prophet Muhammad. It's believed Prophet Muhammad traveled from Mecca to the farthest mosque, the Al-Aqsa Mosque in Jerusalem, and then ascended to heaven from a sacred stone. To commemorate this, the iconic Dome of the Rock was constructed on the former temple site, and the Al-Aqsa Mosque built nearby. For Muslims, this entire sacred precinct is known as Haram al-Sharif, making Jerusalem the third holiest city in Islam, after Mecca and Medina. This 37-acre area, encompassing the Western Wall, the Dome of the Rock, and the Al-Aqsa Mosque, is a focal point of immense religious significance for all three Abrahamic faiths, and thus a constant flashpoint.
The genesis of modern Zionism, late 19th century, early 20th century. Despite centuries of diaspora, the Jewish people never forgot their ancestral homeland. Jewish prayers traditionally faced Jerusalem, a constant yearning for return. This spiritual longing began to transform into a political movement in the late 19th century known as Zionism. Fueled by rising anti-Semitism across Europe, Zionists advocated for a sovereign Jewish state in Palestine. A key figure, Leon Pinsker, wrote in 1882 that Jews needed to create their own independent state, marking a shift from spiritual aspiration to political demand. World War I and the British Mandate, 1914–1948. World War I profoundly reshaped the Middle East. The Ottoman Empire, which ruled Palestine, sided with Germany. Britain, seeking allies, looked to gain support from influential Jewish communities. This led to the Balfour Declaration in November 1917, a pivotal British document supporting a national home for the Jewish people in Palestine. Crucially, it also promised to protect the civil and religious rights of existing non-Jewish communities. This declaration, made without consulting local Arabs, created conflicting promises, setting the stage for future conflict. With the Ottomans defeated, Britain was granted a mandate for Palestine by the League of Nations. Under British rule, Jewish immigration increased dramatically. In 1878, Jews were 25,000 out of 0.47 million. By 1914, 85,000, and by the 1930s, hundreds of thousands, largely driven by escalating persecution in Europe. The rise of Hitler, the Nuremberg Laws of 1935 stripping Jews of their rights, and widespread anti-Semitism made Palestine a desperate refuge. The unimaginable horror of the Holocaust during World War II, where 6 million Jews were systematically murdered, underscored the urgent need for a safe homeland. This desperate influx, often illegal under British quotas, swelled the Jewish population, sparking intense tensions with the Arab majority who saw their land being taken. Arab nations fiercely opposed this migration, but Britain's divide and rule strategy seemed to prioritize its own strategic interests. The UN Partition Plan and the 1948 War, 1947–1949. After World War II, Britain, unable to manage the escalating conflict, referred the Palestine problem to the newly formed United Nations. In November 1947, the UN General Assembly adopted Resolution 181, the Partition Plan. This plan proposed dividing Palestine into two independent states, one Jewish, one Arab, with Jerusalem under international UN administration. Jewish leaders accepted this as legitimizing their claim to a state. Arab nations and Palestinian leaders, however, vehemently rejected it as an unjust appropriation of their land. Notably, India, a non-Muslim country, voted against the partition, as did all Arab nations. On May 14, 1948, as the British Mandate ended, Jewish leaders declared the establishment of the State of Israel. The very next day, a coalition of Arab armies, Egypt, Syria, Jordan, Saudi Arabia, Lebanon, Yemen, and Iraq, invaded the new state. This was the 1948 Arab-Israeli War, known to Israelis as the War of Independence and to Palestinians as the Nakba, or catastrophe. Against all odds, the nascent Israeli forces not only defended their territory, but significantly expanded their control beyond the UN-allocated borders. The war resulted in the displacement of an estimated 700,000 to 750,000 Palestinians who became refugees, a crisis that remains central to the conflict today.
In 1950, Israel further solidified its identity with the law of return, granting every Jew worldwide the right to immigrate to Israel and acquire citizenship. For Israelis, it's a fundamental right. For Palestinians and critics, it's discriminatory, as it doesn't offer a similar right to Palestinian refugees displaced in 1948. Subsequent conflicts and the rise of Palestinian nationalism. The 1948 war did not bring peace. Instead, it ushered in decades of armed conflict and growing Palestinian nationalism. The Suez Crisis, 1956. The strategically vital Suez Canal, primarily controlled by France and the UK, became a flashpoint. In 1956, Egyptian President Gamal Abdel Nasser nationalized it, also barring Israeli ships. Israel, in a secret alliance with Britain and France, invaded the Sinai. While militarily successful, international pressure, especially from the US and USSR, forced their withdrawal. Israel secured passage through the canal, a crucial strategic victory. The Palestine Liberation Organization, PLO, 1964. In 1964, the Palestine Liberation Organization, PLO, was formed by Arab League leaders, intended as the official representative of the Palestinian people. Its initial goal was the liberation of Palestine through armed struggle, aiming for a secular, democratic state across all of historic Palestine. Under Yasser Arafat, who became chairman in 1969, the PLO evolved, gaining international recognition and gradually shifting towards a two-state solution. The Six-Day War, 1967. Tensions exploded in 1967. Nasser again blockaded the Straits of Tiran, provoking Israel to launch a preemptive strike on June 5. The Six-Day War was a stunning victory. In just 6 days, Israel decisively defeated the combined Arab armies. The territorial gains were immense. Israel captured the Gaza Strip and Sinai Peninsula from Egypt, the West Bank, including East Jerusalem, from Jordan, and the Golan Heights from Syria. This war fundamentally reshaped the conflict. Israel now occupied vast territories densely populated by Palestinians, setting the stage for prolonged military occupation and the establishment of Israeli settlements, a major point of contention to this day. The Palestine Liberation Organization's militant campaign and international recognition. After 1967, the PLO's armed struggle intensified. Unable to confront Israel conventionally, Palestinian militant groups, often under the PLO umbrella, resorted to guerrilla warfare and international terrorism. Between 1968 and 1977, Palestinian groups hijacked dozens of planes. A particularly infamous incident was the 1972 Munich Olympics massacre. On September 5th, 8 Palestinian militants from Black September, an offshoot of the PLO's dominant faction, took Israeli Olympic team members hostage. The crisis tragically ended with 11 Israeli athletes, 1 German policeman, and 5 terrorists killed during a botched rescue. This horrific event, while universally condemned, undeniably drew global attention to the Palestinian cause. Despite these acts, the PLO gained significant international recognition. Yasser Arafat was increasingly invited to address the United Nations, signaling the PLO's transition from a purely militant organization to a diplomatic one.
Lebanon War, 1982, and Oslo Accords, 1993. As PLO fighters based themselves in Lebanon, Israel launched a full-scale invasion in 1982 to dislodge them. The war was devastating, causing over 18,000 deaths and significantly weakening the PLO's military. By the late 1980s, the PLO, under Arafat, began to soften its stance. In 1988, the PLO formally recognized UN Resolution 242 and accepted the two-state solution, signaling a willingness to negotiate for a Palestinian state alongside Israel based on the 1967 borders. This opened the door for secret negotiations, culminating in the landmark Oslo Accords signed in 1993. The Oslo Accords were a series of agreements aimed at creating a framework for peace. Key points included mutual recognition between Israel and the PLO, the establishment of the Palestinian Authority, or PA, an interim self-governing body in Gaza and parts of the West Bank, with Yasser Arafat as its first president, a phased withdrawal of Israeli forces, a commitment to negotiate final status issues, borders, Jerusalem, settlements, refugees, in future talks. However, Oslo ultimately failed to lead to a permanent peace. Trust quickly eroded,
due to continued Israeli settlement expansion, delays in Israeli withdrawals, ongoing Palestinian attacks by groups not party to the accords, and a lack of clear roadmap for final status issues. The assassination of Israeli PM Yitzhak Rabin in 1995 by a Jewish extremist further highlighted the deep divisions. The rise of Hamas. Disillusionment with the Oslo peace process and the perceived ineffectiveness of the PLO gave rise to more radical groups. Hamas, or Islamic Resistance Movement, was founded in 1987 during the First Intifada. Unlike the secular PLO, Hamas is an Islamist, nationalist, and militant organization. Its founding charter called for Israel's destruction and an Islamic state across all of historic Palestine. Hamas gained popularity by providing social services and engaging in armed resistance, including suicide bombings and rocket attacks. It rejected the Oslo Accords, actively seeking to undermine them. This ideological difference with the PLO led to deep internal Palestinian division, further complicating peace efforts. Key geographic entities and their significance. Understanding the conflict demands a clear grasp of the contested territories and their profound importance. Jerusalem, this ancient city, is the conflict's very heart. For Jews, it's their holiest city, the site of their ancient temples, their spiritual center. For Christians, it's where Jesus lived, died, and was resurrected, home to the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. For Muslims, it's the third holiest city, the site of the Isra Miraj, and home to the Haram al-Sharif, encompassing the Dome of the Rock and Al-Aqsa Mosque. These layers of history and religion make any division of Jerusalem incredibly sensitive and often an intractable obstacle to peace. East Jerusalem, captured by Israel in 1967, is claimed by Palestinians as their future capital, while Israel views all of Jerusalem as its eternal, undivided capital. Gaza Strip, a densely populated Palestinian territory on the Mediterranean coast. It was under Egyptian control after 1948 and captured by Israel in 1967. Israel unilaterally disengaged from Gaza in 2005, withdrawing settlers and military. However, it maintains a strict blockade due to Hamas's control since 2007, leading to frequent conflicts and severe humanitarian challenges. West Bank, a landlocked territory east of Israel, west of the Jordan River. It came under Jordanian control after 1948 and was occupied by Israel in 1967. The West Bank is divided into areas of varying control under the Oslo Accords. Area A, full Palestinian Authority control. Area B, joint Israeli-Palestinian security control, Palestinian civil control. Area C, full Israeli military and civil control, comprising over 60% of the West Bank and containing most Israeli settlements. The presence and continuous expansion of Israeli settlements in the West Bank are a major point of contention, viewed by Palestinians and much of the international community as illegal and a barrier to a viable Palestinian state. Temple Mount, or Haram al-Sharif. This approximately 37-acre elevated plaza in Jerusalem's Old City is arguably the most contested piece of real estate in the world. It houses the Dome of the Rock and Al-Aqsa Mosque, sacred to Muslims, and it is the site of the first and second Jewish temples, the holiest site in Judaism. Current arrangements typically allow Muslims to worship within the mosques, while Jews are generally permitted to visit but forbidden from praying there, a rule enforced by Israeli police to prevent escalation. Jews pray at the Western Wall, below the platform. Competing claims to this site are a constant source of friction and a flashpoint for violence.
The enduring stalemate. Why no solution?
The conflict persists because the core demands of both sides are perceived as mutually exclusive, and deep-seated mistrust prevents any lasting compromise. Primary reasons for the conflict's persistence: territory and borders. Palestinians demand a state based on the 1967 borders with East Jerusalem as its capital. Israel, citing security and its over 600,000 settlers in the West Bank and East Jerusalem, is unwilling to return to these borders fully. Jerusalem. As we've seen, the division of Jerusalem is an emotionally charged, almost impossible issue. Neither side is willing to cede full control of its holy sites. Refugees. Palestinians demand a right of return for the millions of refugees and their descendants displaced since 1948. Israel vehemently rejects this, arguing it would destroy its Jewish demographic majority. Security. Israel's paramount concern is its security, facing threats from historically hostile neighbors and militant groups. It demands guarantees, including control over borders and strategic areas. However, Palestinians often see these demands as a pretext for continued occupation. Mutual distrust and political will. Decades of conflict, broken agreements, and violence have fostered profound mistrust. Many Israelis believe Palestinians seek Israel's destruction. Many Palestinians believe Israel is not genuinely committed to a viable Palestinian state. This suspicion makes political compromise incredibly difficult. Any politician advocating for concessions often faces strong domestic opposition, sometimes even assassination, as tragically seen with Israeli Prime Minister Yitzhak Rabin. The rise of hardline factions on both sides further entrenches maximalist positions. External interference and regional dynamics. While external powers attempt mediation, their own geopolitical interests can complicate efforts. The broader regional instability also directly impacts the Israeli-Palestinian dynamic. Israel's strategic edge, a small nation's strength. Despite being a small country surrounded by larger, historically hostile nations, Israel has consistently demonstrated a remarkable capacity to defend itself and achieve military objectives, often against overwhelming odds. This strength stems from a unique combination of factors. Military superiority, IDF. The Israel Defense Forces are highly trained, well-equipped, and technologically advanced. Mandatory conscription. Israel has universal mandatory military service, ensuring a large, well-trained reserve force. Advanced technology. Israel heavily invests in defense tech, developing cutting-edge weapons, surveillance, and cybersecurity. Examples include the Iron Dome missile defense system, highly effective against rockets, and newer laser defense systems like Iron Beam, offering a cost-effective solution to a serious threat.
Air dominance. The Israeli Air Force, IAF, is considered one of the best globally, with advanced fighter jets and highly skilled pilots, ensuring air superiority in any conflict. Intelligence prowess, Mossad. Israel's intelligence agency, Mossad, is renowned worldwide for its audacious and effective operations. From covert assassinations of terrorists to intelligence gathering and preventing attacks, Mossad's proactive approach has been critical to Israel's security. Strong alliances, especially with the United States. The strategic alliance with the United States is paramount. The U.S. provides substantial military aid, enabling Israel to purchase advanced American military hardware and maintain its qualitative military edge in the region. This partnership also offers diplomatic backing, intelligence sharing, and military cooperation. National cohesion and survival mentality. The continuous existential threat has fostered a powerful sense of national unity and a never-again mentality, driving innovation, resilience, and a willingness to make sacrifices for national survival. Paths not taken. Proposed solutions and their challenges. For decades, international efforts have focused on resolving the conflict, primarily through the two-state solution. This widely supported proposal envisions an independent Palestinian state existing peacefully alongside Israel, generally based on the 1967 borders with mutually agreed land swaps. Challenges: borders and settlements. Determining precise borders and the fate of over 600,000 Israeli settlers in the West Bank and East Jerusalem is a major hurdle. Jerusalem, the status of Jerusalem remains the most intractable issue. Refugees. The right to return for Palestinian refugees is a non-negotiable demand for Palestinians, but an existential threat for Israel. Security. Israel demands ironclad security guarantees, which Palestinians often view as infringing on their sovereignty. Political will and internal divisions. Deep mistrust and strong internal political factions on both sides make it difficult for leaders to make the necessary compromises. While the two-state solution remains dominant, other, less supported ideas exist, like a single, democratic one-state solution or looser confederations. But despite numerous peace efforts, no comprehensive agreement has been reached. The cycle of violence, settlement expansion, and political stagnation continues. India's evolving stance on the conflict. India's position on the Israel-Palestine conflict has evolved significantly over time, reflecting its foreign policy principles, historical ties, and strategic interests. Historical support for Palestine, pre-1992. Historically, India's foreign policy was rooted in the non-alignment movement and anti-colonial solidarity. Mahatma Gandhi famously stated, "Palestine belongs to the Arabs in the same sense that England belongs to the English or France to the French."
India consistently supported the Palestinian cause, viewing it as a struggle against foreign occupation. India voted against the 1947 UN Partition Plan and was the first non-Arab country to recognize the PLO in 1974. In 1988, India granted full diplomatic recognition to the State of Palestine, establishing a Palestinian embassy in New Delhi. The shift to a balanced approach post-1992. Despite recognizing Israel in 1950, full diplomatic relations only began in 1992. Since 2014, under Prime Minister Narendra Modi, India adopted a de-hyphenation policy, treating its relations with Israel and Palestine as separate and independent. This pragmatic approach recognizes the strategic importance of both. Strategic ties with Israel have rapidly deepened, particularly in defense, technology, and agriculture. PM Modi made a historic visit to Israel in 2017, the first by an Indian prime minister. Continued engagement with Palestine. Despite this, India reaffirms its traditional support for the Palestinian cause. PM Modi visited Ramallah in 2018, paying homage at Yasser Arafat's tomb, signaling commitment to historical ties. India continues to support a two-state solution based on the 1967 borders, with East Jerusalem as the capital of a sovereign Palestinian state. UN voting pattern. While historically voting against Israel in the UN, India has increasingly abstained from votes on Israel-Palestine issues since 2014. This reflects India's effort to balance its traditional support for Palestine with its burgeoning strategic interests with Israel. India's current stance reflects a complex balancing act, recognizing both its historical solidarity with the Palestinian people and the growing strategic and economic benefits of its relationship with Israel.
The Israel-Palestine conflict is a deeply entrenched struggle, fueled by competing narratives of history, religion, and national identity. From ancient kingdoms and Roman rule, through the rise of Christianity and Islam, to modern Zionism and the post-1948 wars, each historical layer adds profound complexity. Key areas like Jerusalem, the Gaza Strip, and the West Bank are not just land, but embody profound religious, cultural, and political significance, making any division or compromise immensely challenging. The evolution of groups like the PLO and Hamas, with their often conflicting objectives, further complicates the path to peace. Israel's ability to defend itself against numerical odds is rooted in its highly advanced military, cutting-edge intelligence agencies like Mossad, the unwavering strategic support from allies like the United States, and a strong national resolve born out of a history of persecution and a deep-seated commitment to survival. Despite numerous attempts, a lasting solution remains elusive due to fundamental disagreements over borders, Jerusalem, refugees, and security, compounded by deep mistrust and a lack of consistent political will on both sides. While the two-state solution remains the most widely supported framework, the obstacles to its implementation are formidable. As the world continues to grapple with this conflict, understanding its intricate historical, religious, and political dimensions is crucial. It is a reminder of how deeply identity, land, and faith are intertwined, and how vital yet challenging genuine empathy and political courage are in forging a path towards coexistence.